We'll start with a magic loop, also known as an adjustable loop or magic ring. Chain 1 to exit the loop, chain 2 more. Now working into the ring, double crochet 12. Making the last double crochet. Now we're going to slip stitch in each double crochet around. If you're not sure which is the first double crochet, you can just count backwards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And that is the top of the first double crochet. Now make one slip stitch in each double crochet around, keeping your tension relaxed and not too tight. Now our round of slip stitches is complete. We're going to join the last slip stitch to the first slip stitch with a nearly invisible join that I call the slip loop join. Remove the hook, pull the loop up a little bit, insert the hook from the wrong side to the right side of the stitch that you want to join to, put the loop back on the hook, pull it through. Now tighten up the yarn until the join more or less disappears. Now we're ready to start the next round. We're going to start working up the sides of the gnome, and to do this we're going to work into the exact same double crochets that we worked into when we made the slip stitches. It sounds a little strange, but if you tip the piece towards you, you can see the top of the double crochets. So we're going to make a round of single crochets into the same double crochets. So that's one single crochet in each, or a total of 12. And coming up on the end of that first round of single crochets, I have 12 single crochets. Now we're going to start working in spiral rounds upwards, and we're going to start working into the front loop of the single crochets. If you're not sure which is the front loop, tip the stitches towards you and you'll see that the top of each stitch looks like a little V. You want to work into the bottom leg of that V. So we're going to start single crocheting in each single crochet around, working into the front loop. You can either use a marker to keep track of your rounds, or you can just count them in your head since the rounds are so short. When you get to the end of the round, just keep working upwards in a spiral without joining. I'm at the end of the 5th round of single crochet. I have 2 stitches left, and for the last 2 stitches we're going to just do regular slip stitches. Now if you want to stuff your gnome with yarn scraps, you can fasten off now, or if you want to do the optional self-stuffing that I'm going to do, you can make a slip loop join into the next stitch, chain 1 very tightly. And the best way to chain 1 tightly is to chain 1 and then pull on it afterwards. Now we're going to just chain 75 very loosely, and we're going to use that as our stuffing. So I'll be back in a minute. So here is my gnome body with the chain 75 self-stuffing. Before we start the hat, take a moment to smooth out the body of your gnome. Just put 2 fingers down inside and pull outwards. Rotate it a little and do that all the way around. This just helps to settle the stitches and make the body look a little bit smoother. Don't worry if the bottom is sticking out, we will flatten that later. This is also a good time to make sure that you have tightened that magic ring as much as you possibly can. Alright, let me get my hat color yarn and we will start the hat. Now the Gnomes of the North pattern on the blog comes with 3 different hat styles. Today we're going to make the single crochet hat. And for any of the hats, what you need to do is find the last slip stitch of that last round that you made, which would be right here. Insert your hook into it. Pull up a loop with the new color yarn. Make sure you leave a bit of a tail. Now we're going to do what I call a forward loop onto the hook. So to do that, curl the yarn around so that the tail is in the back, Put the hook through the loop, pull the tail, and tighten it down. Now, lay the tail to the left, take your working yarn, yarn over, and pull through both the loops on the hook. This counts as your first yarn over slip stitch. Now we're going to make a real yarn over slip stitch into each stitch around. To do that, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, and immediately pull through all the loops on the hook. Yarn over, insert hook into next stitch, yarn over, and pull through all the loops right away. If it's more comfortable for you, you can do it as a two-step process. Insert your hook, pull up that loop, and pull the loop you just pulled up through the other two loops. And we're going to make 11 of these total, and then with the attachment loop that we made, that will make 12 stitches. And here I am making my last yarn over slip stitch. Now we're going to join the last yarn over slip stitch to the first stitch with another slip loop join. I'm going to insert my hook into the top loops of the joining stitch, pull the loop through, tighten my yarn, and that is the first round of our hat. For the next round, we're going to work into the back bar of the yarn over slip stitches, and the back bar is that kind of slanted piece that you can see behind the stitch. So we're going to work in spiral rounds, one round in the back bar. And the back bar of the joining stitch is whatever piece of yarn is right behind the back loop. So single crochet in each back bar around, so you should have a total of 12 single crochets for this round. And here I am working my last 2 single crochets into the back bar of the yarn over slip stitches. Now we're going to keep working upwards in spiral rounds, but before we go on, I'm going to take a second and stuff the gnome with the self-stuffing. If you're using yarn scraps, don't stuff so that the stuffing comes all the way out the top, but just stuff the body. And those are my very precise instructions. Okay, now we're ready to keep going on the hat. We're going to make another round of single crochets, but this time working in the front loop only. So single crochet in each stitch around in the front loop only, and then we will start our decreases. Okay, time to start the decrease rounds. To make a decrease, insert your hook into the front loop of the next single crochet and the front loop of the single crochet after that. Make a single crochet. Now make sure that you skip that second front loop that you went into and go into the next front loop. Now we'll make a round of 11 single crochets. And don't forget to count the one you made at the very beginning of this round, working into both front loops. That is one of your 11. When you get to the end of that round, work another decrease as the first stitch of the new round. Keep working spiral rounds this way, decreasing at the start of each round until you finish with a round of 4 stitches. Don't forget that you're working into the front loop only. And after you finish 3 or 4 hat rounds, you might want to put a little more stuffing in just to give the hat some structure. Here we are, almost done with the hat. I'm down to 4 stitches, so to finish I'm going to make 2 decreases in a row. Insert hook into the next front loop and into the front loop after that. And as you can see, it's a little awkward when you get down to the tip of the hat. Just take your time. Single crochet, insert your hook into the next 2 front loops, which can be hard to recognize, but there's one, and here's the last one. And if you find this very awkward, you can always switch to a smaller hook. One last single crochet, that is the tip of our hat. I'm going to fasten off so that we can add a bobble. And here's what we have so far. He's looking kind of cute. To make the 1 round single crochet bobble, make a magic ring and 7 single crochets in the ring. Now cut your yarn, leaving a 4 to 6 inch tail. Pull the yarn up and out of the last stitch. Tighten the starting tail. And now what we're going to do is weave this tail through every stitch. To do that, insert your hook from front to back, the first stitch, pull the yarn tail all the way through. Insert your hook into the next stitch from front to back, or right side to wrong side, pull the yarn tail all the way through. Do this all the way around the ring. And now I have my tail woven in all the way around. I'm going to tighten the center tail one last time. Now start pulling on the ending tail to tighten it up and gather the tops of the single crochets into a ball. And as you work, help it to roll upwards with your hand. The center tail should be coming up out of the middle of the ball as you tighten it up. And this is our bobble. Get it about as tight as you can. Tighten up that center tail one more time. And then tie a surgeon's knot, which means you go right over left 2 times. Pull as hard as you can. Go left over right 1 time. And again, pull as hard as you can. Now, shape the bobble with your hands. And I like to thread each of these yarn tails on a needle and weave them into and out of the center of the ball and just cut them off. To embroider the nose, first find the little place at the beginning of the hat. Has a little bit of a blip in the stitches. Turn the gnome around and you want to put your nose opposite that spot. I like to go right up through the center hole with the needle. Bring it out just under the hat brim. Draw the yarn until it just disappears into the hole. Don't worry about tying a knot. You don't really need to do that. Now we're going to work over just one little stitch area here. Go down and come up through your yarn. This is what will secure the yarn so that you don't have to tie any knots. Now I'm just going to make 3 stitches as a base for the nose, and then I'm going to keep adding stitches over the top until the nose looks about the way I want it to look. Be careful you don't sew through the hat brim. And it actually looks kind of cute there, but we're going to fill it in. Make it just a little bit puffier. Don't sew through the yarn again after that first time, because once it's secured, you want to be able to frog it if you need to, if you're not happy with the way the nose is turning out. I think we're just about there. Maybe one more stitch will do it. That looks good. Now, to secure the yarn, I'm going to take one last stitch and go all the way through the back of the gnome. Try to come out in one of the holes between the stitches. Make sure the nose looks okay. Now, we're not going to tie any knots. We're just going to weave in and out through the filling. So go right back in the same hole and go in a different direction and come out in a different spot. As you do this, the yarn will catch on the filling and secure itself. And if you want, you can wiggle the needle as you go through. When you've done that, you can snip it, then pull on the body a little bit so that it disappears, and there's our puffy little nose. Now we're ready for a beard. I'm going to show you the simplest beard, which is just a chain. I like to use a knotless chain for the beard, so just wrap the yarn around your hook with the tail on top and towards the front, and loosely chain 5 or 6. Probably 5 in this case. This is a bulky yarn. Now trim the yarn, leaving about a 6-inch tail, and pull the tail up and out without tightening the last chain stitch. Now what we're going to do is use the tails on either end to sew on the beard. Start by threading the longest tail onto a needle and holding the beard in place on the gnome. Take the needle in just under the hat brim right next to the nose and come out through the first, or in this case the last, chain. Now you can either sew right through the middle of the chain. Oops, my needle became unthreaded. I'll talk while I rethread it. You can either sew right through the middle of the chain to tack the beard to the gnome, or you can sew, make little rays and make it look like a spiky beard. I think that I will show you the spiky beard. There are lots of ideas on my blog post for ways to attach the beard, and I encourage you just to experiment and have fun with it. You can do all kinds of things. I'm going to use this tail for most of the sewing. Then when I'm done, I'll use the other tail just to attach the other end. Then I'll weave in both tails and he will be done. All he'll need is a name. Stinking cute, isn't he? This is as good a time as any to show you a trick for what to do if you're weaving in yarn tails and you don't have enough yarn to thread the needle. Put the needle through the project and then thread it. When you have the first tail woven in, thread the other tail on the needle. Take one small stitch through the gnome, through the beard, just to secure that other end. And then go back through the gnome and weave it in just as you did with the other threads or yarns.